All right, so we've got on our topics today, we've got injuries and we've got just like overloaded muscle soreness because we definitely are going to deal with that as well. What do you guys want to start with? Do you want to start with injuries or do you want to start with the muscle soreness?
Let's do soreness because it's kind of a shorter conversation, I feel.
Yeah, I think so too. I want to take both of these two and relate it into like actually being not only like protocols and procedures, but actually being on the floor as coaches and dealing with them. Because that's what I think we're going to have the most to deal with versus like on an owner side or a head coach's side, they may have like a slightly different um, path to deal with. So let's go muscle clinics. You guys that got to read this, did you guys have any quick takeaways before I get into my notes? I'd like to open it up to y'all first.
Better to move than to not move after feeling
Oh,
sore.
100%. Yeah, better to keep moving. I'm on board with that. Um,
I was happy to see the myth bust about stretching after being some sort of like magic elixir,
Me
which
too.
it's not. It can feel good, but it's not going to alleviate soreness like people may think it does.
Yeah, I'm with that. And with the stretching too, like I still will have people stretch, but more to like restore the motion in the joint than to not get sore. Does that make sense? Um, but I still would do that more a little more actively usually anyway, like getting the body temperature warm before I have them mobilized. Um, that I also like that it addressed like the lactic acid as well. And that lactic acid buildup doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get super sore, but it's actually muscle damage basically that's happening is why people get really sore. I think that's um a good thing to kind of realize, and I'll kind of dive into that one too. Anything else you guys have before I take off?
That lactic acid thing, man, I still hear coaches all the time saying, "Oh, you're gonna get so sore at lactic acid."
And you know how personally it's a myth. If I put you on the eco bike and I tell you to go 100% for 60 seconds, you're gonna get off and your legs are gonna be so blown up and you're gonna be like hobbling around, you're gonna be in pain, you're gonna do the bacon sizzle, and that's not gonna feel good. You're gonna get up and walk, and that's not gonna feel good. And that's just the lactic acid buildup. Like you have maximized your threshold. And then the next day, you're really not sore. Like you might be very, very slightly sore, but the soreness ain't there. And if you're gonna say like lactic acid is gonna cause soreness, there was an event where you just absolutely flooded it, and then you really don't have soreness coming, post op. So that's a good example of kind of like this food that we've all done.
And the other thing on lactic acid too is that like it's a good byproduct waste in our body essentially because the muscles will actually utilize that as fuel.
Yeah, that's a great point too. When we get into more of that aerobic work, part of using the oxygen as fuel, lactic acid does have to be present for the conversion. So it is a necessary thing. It just burns and kind of hurts us. Before we jump into like the notes I have, since we're talking about lactic acid, just kind of on that topic, have you guys ever heard of lactic clearance workouts? All right, so go
Is
ahead,
that when
Justin.
you like you'll get done with the workout and then maybe you would hop on like a echo bike and you would just basically use all the
Yeah,
muscles so you can clear that lactic acid and use those other muscles to utilize that byproduct.
yeah, you're definitely on the right track. Like getting on a bike post workout, going for a light jog, possibly even a walk, rowing, like anything that you're just moving in it. Like the intensity doesn't have to be there, the movement has to be there. So what ends up happening is, when you do a workout, whatever muscle that you're using, you're building lactic acid. Eventually, when you start to approach like that threshold, so for example, let's say I'm cranking squats and I'm doing, um, let's say I'm just doing air squats, so my upper body is really not doing anything. And I'm just cranking air squats and going as fast as I can, and my legs start to burn, and my legs start to approach my lactate threshold. Then I'm gonna go bloodstream. So lactate's gonna go bloodstream, and what it's looking for is an area to harbor and start to fill that area up so the legs can keep going. Does that make sense so far? So that's part of the reason Fran is so bad. You do 21 thrusters, your legs start to get to the threshold. You're also pressing, so that's getting the threshold. What's doing the least amount of work out of everything? You're relaxing your biceps, even though that it's on for core stability, but they're not at least pulling and being active. And then you go to your pull-ups and you're like, what's going on? My pull-ups aren't here. And it's because you started harboring lactate in those muscles because of the thrusters. And then you just go back and forth and it hurts real bad. So that goes bloodstream. If, as I'm sprinting, my heart rate's also going up. If I did those squats and I did them really, really fast and I hit that point where it started to burn, and then I backed way off of them, and then I just went to this very slow, easy pace air squat where like the burn started to go away, or maybe I jumped on a bike and I just easy biked. I'm now teaching my body how to clear lactate and be more efficient at clearing lactate. What we need for that to happen is muscle contraction, and we need the heart rate to be up a little bit. So once our heart rate eventually falls to a point where it's not elevated, then we slow down the clearing of lactate because I'm not breathing as hard, so I'm not using my aerobic system as much. So basically, once you slow that down, you stop clearing. So if you did a lactate clearance workout, you could essentially do maybe 15 seconds of weighted squats, a minute of body weight, very slow air squats. And the pattern of squatting is not changing, the intensity is changing, and you'll teach yourself how to clear over time with training. The most common one, have you guys seen the elite like games athletes will do handstand push-ups and then they get off and they do PVC pipe push shoulder press, PVC pipe push press? I'll send a video of that. There was one, I think, of Sam Dancer and Kristen Shaw doing it. That would be a lactate clearance. Essentially, they're doing 5 minutes of pressing straight, but with different intensities, teaching the body how to clear that. So post-workout, if you just want to become a fitter person, if you get on that bike, you go on a jog, you go on a runner, you will get fitter because you're also teaching your body how to do that well, and and you're working out a little more. That's lactate clearance. You have lactate stacking. So clearance is obviously getting the lactate out of the muscle so you can continue to work. Lactate stacking's point is raising the threshold of what that muscle group is capable of like harboring. So lactate stacking would be, what's a good example? Like if I took a bench press and I put 135 on the bench press and I ripped my reps, and then I either just held that bar at the top for rest, so all those muscles would stay active, they're not contracting and I'm not breathing, so it's holding the lactate in the muscles. Or maybe I did my bench press, I racked it, and then I took a 25 or 30-pound plate and I continued to press, but with some intensity, and you just continue to like put more, and you're just blowing yourself up intentionally for it. That would be a stacking. So you're not giving yourself this like active recovery period. You're just hammering through and pretty much eventually going to failure on that. So you would take both of those different types of workouts and you would implement them back and forth. One of them, teach yourself how to clear it so you can continue moving. That's what elite athletes are really, really good at doing. You give them a row in the middle of their workout, they're clearing themselves and recovering, maybe when we're actually working and still dying. And then you also do lactate stacking to raise that ceiling on top of it. So then your muscular stamina starts to become badass. Does that make sense with lactate? For fun, I'll program in our group like 2 or 3 weeks of lactate stacking versus lactate clearance workouts. And if you want to play with them to see what they feel like, it's definitely worth playing with. And it's a really good tool in the coach's toolbox to use, especially when you start to work with people who want to compete. I will say lactate stacking hurts really bad. It's not fun.
I had a question for lactate clearing. Is that just like the strategy in a workout to remove the lactate buildup, or is it a training tool to train the body to lactate quicker? What is it typically?
Both. Yeah, you can literally program it as a training tool for like a specific area. And the better your body gets at it, you'll respond to it in workout. So like a good example is if I had a workout that was, multiple rounds of handstand push-ups in a run, like I can get to a point where if I pace that run properly, I can use that as a lactic recovery because I have my arms firing for the handstand push-ups. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
the answer would be both.
I want to
You're
make
gonna
a
do better, you're gonna do it in a workout. Go ahead, Jose.
comment about it. There's a Instagram page called What Science that they put
Yeah, they're in UK or something.
I think it's in middle Europe. I think
Okay.
they are from Austria or something like they put a group of people doing Fran and they said how Fran is an aerobic. You know that phosphocreatine
Energy
anaerobic
systems.
and the aerobic should be like something in 10 minutes, but it's like you consume so much the substrate that you switch to the aerobic in those 3 minutes and then you keep consuming for like 10 more minutes. They were doing VO2 max. And one of the conclusion was that even if it would have been like a more like an anaerobic because of the domain, a better way to train for an aerobic would be like intervals and then do it like rest and then doing another one. And so I'm gonna bring it back to what we were talking about like a few weeks ago about
With the VO2 max.
VO2 max and how interval training and it makes it better. And finally, I wanted to round it up as Mayhem Athlete. They do a lot of those things of training like 3 minutes, then two
They have a
minutes up,
ton of
then three
intervals.
minutes, 2 minutes up, 3 minutes. And instead of doing like 5 rounds, doing in one, like it's more typical CrossFit workout. And working out with people like Shai and Janine that they are like competitive, this is the way that they approach. Like they would like do this 3 minutes workout and then let's go on a bike, keep moving on the bike, keep moving instead of like 2 minutes of just resting. Stay moving, keep moving, then go back to the second round of 3 minutes, then keep moving the resting period and then go back. So it's like
So
kind of what you're saying, teaching
it
your
literally,
body to
literally is.
move it. And in this format of interval where you are pushing forward the anaerobic, your anaerobic way pattern, like it's
So
the one that we use the most.
with the VO2 max and your aerobic base, and like thinking if you're training lactate clearance, you're basically climbing a mountain, right? You guys see that, right? Our interval, we're gonna go up, we're gonna hit this peak, and that's like our red line in the interval, like we're training VO2 max. And if this was a mountain, right, we have this threshold here that we can go visit the summit, but we cannot live there. We have to get back under eventually to live. So like in our interval training, we're sprinting, right? We spike it. We can live there for a little bit, but then we take rest, or even better yet, an active recovery, and we get back down into this base here. And with like what you were saying with like shine and training and doing those intervals, they get on a bike and slow move, but they're also building that aerobic base because now you're gaining time. You're not just standing around resting. And then they go visit that summit and they work VO2 as well. So it's like this back and forth of doing both best of both worlds. And that's really what we want to do in training. We don't want to only train this. We don't want to only train this. We want to make sure that we're visiting both regularly, basically. Yeah, and what Jose was saying, the VO2 and aerobic and like the lactic training, like you can visualize this threshold here. Like there's your lactic threshold where we can pass it, but we got to stop and recover it and regain it, basically. Questions on that? I'll program those workouts if you guys want to play with them just to see what they're like. And we'll talk about it like next week or the week after, just on what took away from it. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, how often would you program the stacking, the lactic stacking?
It would depend, I think, on the person and like what can they handle, and probably on the movement too. So like I can probably get away with lactic stacking the legs a little bit better twice a week than I could on something that would be like for legless rope climbs. Like I'm not gonna be as willing to tax the bicep like I do like some bigger muscle groups. So I would say like both of those things would depend. I think if you did a stacking and a clearance probably once a week for each would probably be very effective. Very quick story. Chris Hinshaw used to program for Matt Frazier. Matt Frazier at one point thought he was not good at like sandbag cleans and D-ball cleans. So he used to do 10 rounds of lactic clearing and lactic stacking once a week each for him. There's some cool rope climb ones too. The rope climb one's very interesting. You have to be extremely strong at rope climbs to do at least the version that Hinshaw said. Any other questions or statement on the lactate? It's kind of a side tangent, but a good one. All right, let's get into actual muscle soreness. So one of the other things I really like about this article is that it talked about the mechanical loading, with the mechanical side of getting sore. And I think that's a huge clue to us. Like when we start to look at as coaches, like how am I going to get stronger, put mass on? That's exactly basically how. So it talks about the concentric, which is the way up. That's the muscle contraction, right? The muscle comes together. We're not going to cause as much damage with that, even though that's the cool part of exercise, right? I want to go up on a pull up. I want to stand up my squat. That's the side effect that we're excited about when we hit a PR, but it's not our meat and potatoes when it comes to like training. The eccentric on the down, where our muscle starts to elongate and stretch out, is where we're going to actually end up causing the most damage. So when I'm looking looking to train myself or program for somebody else, I'm going to have a ton of eccentric work. And I think we kind of already know this, but that eccentric work is where we're going to have the bang for our buck. And the more time under tension I can have in the eccentric time frame, the more small micro tears and damage I'm going to cause to the muscle that's going to allow it to regenerate stronger, bigger afterward. So when you guys see programs that are, a ton of tempo squats and things like that, remember that tempo is your most valuable point. Go slower than you can go if that's possible for you. So use that as like a programming and coaching tool when the time is right. And then also talk about the isometric. Isometric is going to add a lot of strength to it because it's still time under tension, but don't think of the isometric as necessarily going to add mass or like more mass, more like hypertrophy stuff. So put that in your tool, like programming toolbox to use. And you guys are already doing it. Like Gina's had all those tempo negative handstand push-ups and the ring muscle ups, and we have a bunch of toenail spots on here. Keep doing those things. For coaching on the floor, like really kind of what I wanted to chat and get into. We have this muscle soreness that'll happen. What's going to be the person that comes into the gym and has this muscle soreness and we don't see them for a week?
They're gonna stay sore.
We get them all the time. Free trial, right? We get a free trial that comes in, and I would say at least half the people go, "Yeah, I've done CrossFit before," and the reality is that they haven't, or they haven't in a very long time, or they went to like F45, and so they're like, "Yeah, I've done this CrossFit thing," and they really like aren't totally physically prepped for what's about to happen. Those are the people I think we have to look out for the most when it comes to getting sore and causing this extreme soreness. What are some techniques that you guys use? I put some workouts in the want to take a look at that after the call. Let's say we have Cindy, right? We have a 20-minute in. I've got a person that's come in that hasn't exercised in 10 years. What's a way you guys can modify that to still have them move with the group, but make sure you're going to see them tomorrow and that they're going to be able to walk downstairs and get out of bed later? Give me some scaling options.
And incorporate rest, like do a round, take 30 seconds off, a minute off.
That's
Decrease.
my favorite thing to do. Put a rest period in. So when we have these workouts that are nonstop moving, implement for them. You're going to do a round, you're going to take a minute off. You're going to do a round, you're going to take a minute off. The one thing I'll say is on an AMRAP, you're safe. It doesn't matter necessarily like how long the round is going to take, right? For Cindy, I think it's fine that they do 5, 10, 15 still. And then they maybe take a minute, depending how your analysis is for them in the warm-up, maybe is going to dictate whether you're going to give them 30 seconds, a minute, or 2 minutes of rest. You can also make it easy, be like every 3 minutes, you're going to do a round, and then you kind of gave them an EMOM as well. However you want to do that is fine. That would, I would say, to add a little more intensity to it potentially. What's a consideration that you have to take if it's 5 rounds for time and you're going to implement rest?
Still want to hit the stimuli, so you just have to
Still,
skip.
yeah, I still want to hit the stimulus. I still want them finishing the workout when everyone else is finishing the workout. So if I go 5 rounds of time and then tell them you're going to take a 2-minute rest after each round, then all of a sudden I accidentally had them working out for an additional 10 minutes beyond everyone else. That's not going to be a fun experience for them. They're not going to want to come back because they're going to be like, wow, this sucks. Like I was like this outcast in class. So when implementing time, like at a rest time on a round for time workout for a new person, because you're trying to really mitigate that soreness.
Less
be
rounds?
cautious. Yeah, less rounds. Maybe it's less reps per round. Get creative so they're still finishing with the group with everyone else. Like no one wants to be that outcast. Some people do get really sensitive when they're last one, and it's like overly getting cheered on and everyone gathers around. Some people love it, some people don't. You got to learn that with each person too. Those are good. My favorite definitely is though adding a rest interval for those. And then from there, get creative. Like obviously if it's pull-ups, maybe it's a ring row for the day or a jumping pull-up. If it's push-ups, maybe you have them do a bar push-up or a push-up on the knees, whatever that's going to be, to like just lower the intensity a little bit. All right, new person, snatch day, and it's 7 sets of 2.
I mean, that's gonna,
Don't even. Sorry, go India.
no, I was just gonna say, I mean, I guess it depends because you would do a progression for the snatch with the, say with the PVC pipe, depending on how they move, I would decide if they should use a light barbell or like even the PVC or just then go with a dumbbell. And
Yeah, I
maybe
think-
give them a little bit more reps than just 2.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. I think it depends is the first response. Like how are they moving? I'm gonna try to keep them on that barbell as much as I can. And just the reason being is that day would be the perfect environment for them to get used to snatching because there's no other elements they have to worry about. They're gonna get rest. They're not gonna have a high heart rate with it. If it was a Metcon, then I would be a little more inclined to go the dumbbell route. That being said, I wouldn't have that off the table. I think that's a good back pocket, just especially on who you're dealing with. Like if you're dealing with a master's athlete and you see in the warm up and you're doing PVC pass-throughs, all these things that they have 0 range of motion, then a dumbbell is going to be a lot safer for them. They're going to get a stimulus off of it, and I can still teach, you know, our core extremity, our active cylinder. I can still teach all of those things with the dumbbell. But I'm going to try to keep them on the barbell if I can, and I just say, what's something you can do on the barbell to fit that person more?
You can make them go for a hang instead of the floor.
Yep, make it a hang. If it's a squat snatch, make it a power snatch. Symbolize the movement for them. The other thing you said is adding reps. So it's a snatch that's extremely complex. So the more practice we get for those people is going to be better. right? It's gonna give them more opportunities to get this down. It's gonna give them more opportunities for us to coach them. So more reps, I absolutely love. And I would say maybe anywhere from 4 to 6. And then the other thing of that is because it's so complex, I also know that this person's not going to get crazy heavy and they're probably not going to overdo like the reps. See you, Brian. Thanks for jumping on. They're probably not going to overdo the reps and end up really sore anyway. So I love the more rep idea. Jose, I think you said something about a clock.
Yeah, I would put him on reps, like you're going to do this variation, like just deadlift pull muscle every 2 minutes. You're going
Yeah,
to do
so
one of those.
I really like the clock element to this as well. It gives you the ability to now control how many sets they're actually doing. Why I say that, have you guys ever had a new person in class and it's a heavy day only and they just kind of don't know what to do with themselves and they're on their 39th set of deadlifts and you're like, okay, well, this was going to be fine, but they just kept ripping the bar and now they've done 150 deadlifts today and now I know they're going to be smoked. So giving them the clock is also going to help you manage the volume, because even though the snatch is going to be super light, if they end up accidentally doing Randy, like that workout can make you really sore. So it will dictate and help you control the volume, and you know when they're picking the barbell up, which I think is a very useful tool in making sure that they're getting the attention they need, but making sure that you're not only giving them the attention, that you have time to get the room and coach other people as well. Nice job on those modifications. Let's say they couldn't snatch. What would be your next go-to?
They couldn't snatch? You
Yeah, let's
said?
say the barbell
But-
was an issue.
Clean.
Dumbbell.
Pulls
Yeah,
Clean.
or snatch pull?
dumbbell. I would go dumbbell first because I'm at least preserving snatch, and then I would potentially go clean. The clean, I would question, is the front rack going to be okay if they had like a hurt shoulder? And if they couldn't, I think Elise said it, like a snatch pull. Don't forget, we have sumo deadlift high pull in our bank. That's going to teach all of those things that we want to teach, even though we don't, probably none of us actually love that movement. Still a very useful movement tool for learning. Good job on that one. Let's think. It's Murph. That's a big one for new people. I think that is just like, let them know that it is okay to scale. I think a lot of people get very intimidated because it's Hero Wad, everyone's at the gym, it's a big event, it's a big deal. Like, it's okay to scale still. Someone should not go into Murph and do full Murph if they shouldn't do full Murph. That makes sense. So I just think communication on like events like that are very important to members. And I don't know about you guys, but it bothers me when people do full Murph and they don't do a single push-up rep and a single air squat rep. I would rather them do 25% and do full range of motion reps. That's just my own massive thing. I'm very annoying to have in Murph Prep Monday right now at the gym. With muscle soreness. Let's say you guys have a free trial comes up to you and they're like, hey, yeah, I was planning on coming Monday. I'm going to come back Thursday and then I'm going to come Saturday. What is your response?
What are you doing in between?
Yeah. I'm going to nudge them and I'm going to coach them. And remember, we're coaching. Sometimes people are going to take our advice, sometimes they're not, but I'm at least going to relay this information that I think you should at least come some back-to-back days. I'm going to let them know in that you don't have to come and throw down and try to go win the whiteboard, but I want you to come and move and get blood flow and get things loosened up. And I'm going to just kind of explain that to them. I think a lot of people who go to the gym are like, I'm going to skip every other day because I know I'm going to be sore. And then they just end up super stiff and it's almost worse. I tell them, even if you come in and you're going to do, a 20-minute slow bike just to loosen up and just hang out and we'll chat and we'll talk and be a part of the gym, like that's fine. Like I want to see you here and I want to see you here. So I think relaying that information, I think does a couple things. Like it's going to keep them more comfortable through the week. It's also going to keep them like hot lead. I think out of sight, out of mind. If people aren't showing up at the box, I think they're less likely to become a member at the box. If they're coming every day and they're getting their name said and hello and goodbye and all these things, they're going to enjoy that experience a lot more. And you're much, much more likely to convert a member without even trying to sell them. And what are you also doing? You're starting to establish a habit, right? Our goal is to get people healthy. If they're not showing up in the gym, they're not going to be learning, they're not going to be training, and we're impartially like not doing our job. They're trying to do our job like we should. So I always have that conversation with new people and like let them know, like, dude, you don't have to wait until you're not sore. Like, I want to see you back there. I'll modify everything for you if I need to, and then they know you care. So that's a big one. I think anybody that's come from Riptide is really good at that. Santi is very, very good at having that conversation with new members.
I have a question though. So, because, you know, there's a lot of times that you have these new people that always ask you, like, how many times do you think I should be coming to the gym? And I always say, like, at least at the beginning, maybe 3 to 4 times. But so what I heard you say was you would have them come back to back rather than like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Let's say if I tell them, if I suggest 3 times and they do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you would rather do like Monday, Tuesday, and then come back Thursday or something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to build consistency, basically. And like when you do a workout, like we all probably can remember our first CrossFit class and do the first one. And whether you scaled or not, you're gonna end up sore. When you wake up in the morning and you go to get out of bed and you're like, oh God, I can't do a sit-up after roll out. Right. And then you never really move all day. You just go to work and like, let's say this person works at a desk. They're never going to mobilize themselves to get moving. So they're going to wake up the next morning and feel the same way. So if I can at least get them moving with blood flow and get some new fibers and start to facilitate recovery, like I want to try to do that for them. You know, how many times are you really sore? And then by the time you're done with the warm up, you're like, oh, I feel so much better now. Like we're just trying to deliver that for that basically. And remember, just because you go 4 days a week or 5 days a week, it doesn't mean you have to go 100% every single day. Like we got scaling, we got modifying. We're going to use that to the appropriate extent based on what's happening in each day. I did barber yesterday and I scaled the shit out of it. I sprinted, I scaled, it still hurt really bad. Or I could have scaled and I could have just moved and it wouldn't hurt at all. It would have just been I was moving and sweating. So it's like we can always dictate all those intensities, and that's what I want to deliver to them. Not just a new person, but anyone, you know, anyone that's coming to the gym. That kind of answer your thoughts there.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I heard you right.
Yeah, I don't like when people skip days personally. I think out of sight, out of mind. From a very business point of view, like if they're not here and they're not coming, like they're also not thinking about it. So I want to be on the forefront of their mind and like the forefront of excitement and like take the motivation that they had coming into the gym. And I want to continue to build on that motivation now. Like you're here, you got the ball rolling. I'm not going to let you not come back and disappear. Like let's keep this ball rolling. I think that's psychological part of it is as much as the physical recovery part of it too.
And Nathan,
Yeah.
I'll add on top of what you're saying. I had a little bit of a shift on my thinking. I was kind of where Diana was, like for a brand new athlete coming in. I was like, 3 days a week, that's probably good. Give them a day of rest. But I just saw a study, I think it was last week or the week before, that basically said if you can get some sort of movement in before you start lifting heavy, and what they were stating was like an RPE of 2, even just 2.
Yeah, barely.
The next time you start adding load, like you can diminish like majority of that soreness response that you would potentially get. So how I was thinking about it, like, man, let's get them in 5 days a week and get them just to do RPE2 on all like the main muscle groups. So the following week, when they're ready to maybe start incrementally adding, they're not going to be devastated. And just let that first week serve as like, all right, let's get them to do some of the movements, understand the movements, and just alleviate the potential of being sore by doing that low load before we get into the next week.
I think that's a good way to look at it from the coach's point of view too. Like, let's say day one, Monday, they come in and let's say their RPE, their rate of perceived exertion, how hard they worked in their head was at 8 that day. And for us, it could be nothing. Like maybe they squatted to a box and they would be a 1 for us. But let's say for them, it was an 8. They worked really hard and they're going to be super sore, even though we scaled them. And they come back in Tuesday, like we tell them, and hey, you're going to move at like a 3 out of 10 today. I just want you to move, and we'll use this as a technique today and really hammer mechanics and maybe have wave them on what their perceived intensities are. And then week 2, a notch goes up. Week 3, a notch goes up. First month, a notch goes up. And then we're kind of rolling into like what we just do day to day. So I think that the RPE thing, I kind of like that. I'll probably actually even steal that and use that in a conversation with them and kind of explain that. And I also think it's really good to know and learn that you don't have to go 100% every single day you're in the gym. Like that's not sustainable. Something's gonna give, you're gonna burn out, something's gonna go. Like you're going for the most part 70-80%, and then you have a day you come up. And then last week, Monday, I wasn't feeling it. I just moved and I sweated. I felt much better on Tuesday and I got a better workout Tuesday. So like listening to your body, it kind of teaches them to know it's okay to listen to yourself and make those adjustments personally, as well. I know when I started CrossFit, everything was go as physically as hard as you can, no matter what it was. And I would just wreck myself for the first 2 years. Like no one was like, dude, it's okay to calm down. I was also like 18 at the time. So calmed down, but that's beside the point.
Hey, Justin, can you send that study in the group?
I know. I
Yeah.
knew you were gonna ask me that. I'll find it. It was on a
We'll find
podcast,
it.
but I need to look for it. I think it was actually on a yoga podcast that they're incorporating strength, and they're like all like amazed by how strength is like the new research on how strength is like so much needed, and they're like all these yogis are like, wow, this is really blowing my mind. We're gonna start like going to the gym. Like, I'm like, yeah, of course.
I'll tell you too, no matter what, we're CrossFitters, right? But also no matter what other like fitness modalities you're into, remember like in our literal name is cross. So like if you guys come across anything, powerlifting, weightlifting, yoga, triathletes, like read and listen to those things. You'll pick up stuff that you can implement into what our craft is, and it'll make you a better athlete and coach.
Glassman said it, like if we find that hula hoop is improving your fitness, we are going to implement it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, but it's super true. So, I think when I did my level 1, Jenny Orr was the one who said it. She said, read everything and everything you can. If you read it and it's terrible, then whatever, you don't use anything out of it. But she was like, read something you think is worthless and you pick up one thing. And over 10 years, all those one things you pick up make you an excellent coach. And she was 100% spot on with that.
You know that my coaches, like really old school, they've been doing CrossFit for more than 10 years, or closer to 20. Um, they've been they started doing stuff a lot with kettlebells and odd objects like circus stuff, like moving around, stuff like they're implementing a lot. And it's something that I realized that when I wanted to start new sports, okay, what's the sport that I want to do that I always wanted? I tried to do surf and skateboarding, and I realized that I have no control doing this movement that you use it because we always
We're very
work out
linear.
this and this. We never work out unless you're doing a lot of shuttle runs, like moving around. But really moving like in this way, we never do it. And I realized that I had no way controlling boards or anything doing
And
this stuff.
remember in the original Fitness in 100 Words in CrossFit's prescription, in the actual prescription, the last line is to get outside and play sports
Yeah.
that you're not used to. So even though, oh look, Elise has it on her shirt.
Yeah, cool.
I think it's in Fitness in 100 Words. I know it's one of the
Yes.
lines, but those sports like, there you go, Jose. Like, when we talk about things like that, like, we're just very regimented into going to work, going to the gym, all these types of things. Technically, that advice was given, and we should have done that. So, like, given the opportunities to go play pickleball, go play pickleball. It's a great time. Advocating for that one slightly. But yeah, do that stuff. Like, that's actually in our CrossFit prescription. The one thing I will say is, like, the kettlebells is a really good example. You see people that get really excited over things like that, and they start to do the turns and twists, and they get good and they flip it. Like, have that in your things like that in your regimen, but it's the seasoning to
Accessory.
your fitness program. It's this accessory. Don't let it become the main course, right? Like, our main course is still our CrossFit methodology, and we're allowed to dabble in everything around it. Like, bicep curls are a great example. You used to be an idiot if you bicep curled in a CrossFit gym, and that was wrong. Like, we should bicep curl sometimes after the workout. It's just we shouldn't do rounds for time with bicep curl. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go injuries. I'm just gonna kind of run through this because we talked about muscle soreness and kind of had some good side tangents. For injuries, I think having a plan in general is like the difference in, I think, coaches, gyms looking very professional and not. So what I mean by having a plan is, like, even in my lesson plan before class, I'm gonna have a couple little quick notes in the end that, it's snatch day. What could I run into? I could run into shoulders, backs. If it's squat snatch, maybe knees, like, just some different scenarios. And, like, what am I gonna scale, and have these, like, options just in my back pocket? Because even though I know my members and I may have no one with an injury, you don't know who's dropping in or who's a free trial. You never know when they just show up on your doorstep. And I think that can be the difference of someone wanting to stay at your gym and not when they go, hey, what should I do? I have this. And you go, give me a minute. It just shows there's no prep there, right? So having a plan in your lesson plan for just some very, very common injuries that you may see or issues that may arise. Even like just the back getting tight. Like, if you think of that, like the people who get the spinal erectors that lock up on them, having just like a side plan that if you see somebody warming up their snatches and they're trying to do child's pose and they're trying to stretch and twist, it's not going to get better for the workout. Give them a, hey, let's hang today. Or maybe let's do this instead. I can see your back seating a little tight. Just at least give them that. A plan for like during class and in the event of something happening. That's going to be, I think, coordinated with you and your head coach or gym owner or whatever, like having like these incident reports. How many of you guys know you have an incident report sheet where it's at your gym? Yeah. So
I have.
that's one that's really simple. Like, every coach should know where it's at. You pull it out, you write it down, you both sign it in the end. So now we have a story of what happened. It's an accurate story of what happened. Nothing's gonna change. That's more for your gym owner and protecting his or her ass. Like, if something happens and there's no like report or anything, then like the story can change. All hell can start to break loose. If they try to sue you, that's something that could definitely get brought up. Why was there no report made? And while you're like looking up the creek, you could probably Google them and find them if you don't have one at your gym to have. I would just have 5 or 6 copies on hand in a folder somewhere, and you can pull it out immediately and do your thing. If the person's not there and it's like a big event, then I'd still fill it out once EMS and 911 has taken care of everything. If they're not there to sign, have a witness sign with you. Sucks for them if they get called into a court situation, but at least you're protecting yourself in the gym, right? So I would definitely have those. If you don't, just talk to your gym owner. It's a really easy thing to do. We have actually 2 different ones at the gym. We have one to fill out with the person, and we have one to fill out like just for staff. Communication. I think that's a huge one. So whether something happens at the gym, outside the gym, doesn't matter. Like, going into the coaches chat and being like, hey, Nate rolled his ankle playing pickleball this weekend. He shot me a text and let me know. I'm letting you guys know so you know what proper, modifications to make for Nate today on the box jumps or double hinges, whatever it's going to be. So telling and communicating with the staff on what's going on with each person is going to be really important too, because it's our job to deliver, the best possible hour and the best possible workout for that person. And if our owner knows and doesn't say anything, or another coach knows and doesn't say anything, then I get caught off guard and I potentially can't do my job there. I think that's the same thing for potentially other issues too. Some of them you need green lights on, I think, from the person to share. But like if someone's pregnant, that's one that needs to get communicated and shared. If someone's having a really, really hard time with something, and let's say they're going through some like really big emotional distress, and like we maybe just need to not be as relentless on them on their air squat, like they can push them over the edge. Like knowing those things can be really big difference in someone's day, and especially in the gym. Like I don't want to be relentless on somebody and screaming to be in the heels, and their girlfriend just broke up with them, and they're about to punch me in the face, and I don't know it because someone didn't share it. But I would definitely like get the green light from that person before you share. Be like, hey, can I share with only the staff? Just so they're aware. Most of the time people would say yes. So communication is going to be really big. And then like if it was an incident that you can learn from it. Like a really good example is like if someone falls off the pull-up rig and we didn't realize that we shouldn't have a box under them, like take some accountability and be like, guys, make sure the box is on under the person on the rig. So just stuff like that. And
Can
then
I
the
add
last,
something? No, you
Go ahead.
finish. You want me to go? You
Yeah.
go? Okay. No, I was gonna say that if there is an incident like an injury or something, I think the coaches should follow up with them and make sure how they're feeling and all that, because that'll also help you build your relationship with them and they'll respect you a lot more because of that.
Yeah, that was my last thing. I knew you were
Oh,
going to say
sorry.
follow up. Yeah, following up. I think 100% the owner, the head coach, the manager, whoever's job it is to do that needs to do that. It's not something I think like it's a scary phone call potentially, but like that needs to happen. Like following up and showing that you care and like we don't give a shit. Just from a human being perspective, you're probably lightening the load on them thinking about taking like a legal action, right? So just from that, like not that people are just going to jump to do that, but you never know. I think that alone may help. So I think on the owner, on the head coach, whatever the policies of the gym are in place for that, but it definitely needs to come from one of them. I also think it's a good thing to if like the coach that was there, like if someone misses a box jump and just shreds their shin, that like that coach that day sends a text and like, hey, just checking in with you, seeing how you're doing. From B's point, I think that really, really builds trust from coach to an athlete. It shows you care a lot. And it shows that like not just the gym, but the gym and the coach, like we're looking to remedy these issues. And remedying the issues may just be the person's like, hey, can you put a sign that says watch your step? No problem. So it could be something very, very simple. Or it could be, maybe the person didn't make the box jump because they're not great at it, and you build a relationship and then they want to use you for a session. I just booked a session last night for a guy to teach him crossover symmetry and shoulder stability stuff. And his shoulder's fine, but he's like, it felt funny this morning. So it's like, have the conversation, took the time to talk to him, like show I care and be like, hey, if you ever want this, like we can help you with this too. So like it can be absolutely a silver lining and something happening that turns into a client for you guys, to make a bit more of a better living and things like that. But if you don't, I think genuinely care at the core of that, you're never going to get a client. If it's only about trying to sell them something, they're going to smell and sniff that. So like the care needs to be there for sure.
I had a client this morning strain his thigh doing we're doing rep max squat cleans and stuff, and he was like, I just felt the pop, and he walked off. So this guy's like a little, like he's a little immobile. So I was like, okay, like we have bench press next, and he loves to bench. I was like, let's do bench. And then the rest, when they're doing the overhead squat, I was like, you're not doing that. You're going to ride your bike because you need to move right now. I was like, I know it hurts, but you sit still, it just makes it worse. And I actually just checked with him right now. And I said, you're coming to the gym tomorrow. Like, I'm expecting you there. And he's like, they call me drill sergeant. So he's like, yes, drill sergeant. So I was like, we'll take care of you. I was like, don't worry about not being able to do the workout. Like, we're going to make you work and still have you come in and do stuff.
Perfect. Yeah, and that exactly, like letting them know that we can do stuff. We can still exercise. Like, we don't have to sit at home for the next 6 weeks and become fat and then be upset about my progress. Because a lot of people just throw that out the window and they're like, well, I gave it a go. It's done now. And then 15 years goes by and their doctor tells them they need to start doing something, and then they try to restart. So like, we don't want them to get into that boat at all either. And just kind of going back to like following up with communication, like even having those incident reports, like all that is very important because you do never know when something's coming. I had to give what is it called, a deposition one time in a case for an injury that someone was coming to CrossFit. It had nothing to do with me. It was a car crash they were in, but they came to CrossFit after. They immediately let me know what they could, what they couldn't do. I trained her for like 2 or 3 years. I hadn't talked to her for like 18 months, 2 years, and then I got the subpoena. And basically what it was there was a whole lawsuit going on, and they wanted to know what I had her do in CrossFit. They were trying to see if I caused any extra issue or I compromised her. So like, just having this information and holding on to it even a little bit can be very handy for you, your gym owner. You just really actually never know. So just kind of just covering your own assets there. Any like statements, questions on that? Elise, good job texting. I think that's huge. Cool. Let's go real quick to the little scenarios I have.
I think that another thing I think that what gyms should have also is just like an emergency action plan.
Yeah.
One, to like go over injuries, and then God forbid if something serious does happen, like someone goes into cardiac arrest or whatever, because the lawyers, the first thing to do would be like, do you have this plan in place of what happens in emergencies? You say no, then like you're just more liable now.
You're basically up the creek.
Hey, question.
Yeah.
Do you need to have like a written procedure about that here? Like a gym should have like written documents, like in case of this, you're doing this, in case of this, you're doing that.
I don't know, like legally. I would assume that's also different per state. If like you were supposed to like actually have that or not. It's like the AED thing. Like, I know it's like gyms over 1,500 square feet. It's now law that you have to have an AED. So I don't know about that, but what I will say, like Elise is talking about, in an event that something does happen and the gym doesn't have those procedures, that would be probably really easy to circle back on and be like, they didn't even have anything planned, and this is, a high risk potential situation, and they had nothing. Like, I think you would be setting yourself up for not a good outcome on that. So whether it's law or not, it's like, it's the smart thing to do for sure.
Yeah.
And also looking at like insurance potentially too.
Yeah.
Like, there could be something in the insurance policy that says like, you have to have this, and if you don't have this, like, they could just throw you out and be like, we're not covering your claim. So that's definitely something to probably look at too.
If I learned anything, it's always it's CYA.
Cover your ass.
Like, even if it's not required, it's always good to have. And then just, because not even if an injury or cardiac arrest, like what if it's a big gym and there's a fire and you have a second floor? Like, do you have specific places for people to go? Do you have specific exits that people can go to? Like,
not gyms, but public spaces. You need, in my country, you need to have like a library, and everyone should know what is on those documents and how to clean the stuff. What are you going to, if it's burning, where's the place that you're going? In case of something, something happens, I mean, it's the procedures and how to go, and then they will give you the license to
operate
function,
business.
to work, yeah, to
Yeah.
operate, yeah.
So, I mean, the fire inspector shows up every year, right? And like Riptide's a great example. Riptide is a tiny square, right? It's got two massive doors that are open. It's got a front door that's always open, but he still goes and checks that exit sign on the back door every time, right? And you go, dude, that exit sign's so stupid. But like, in the
It's
event,
regulation. Yeah.
in the event
But I
that
mean, what if
something did
everything else
happen,
is closed and you have to go through
exactly.
the door? Like,
But even in the event that like
maybe it's not closed. Maybe there's just
Some-
fire all around.
some idiotic
Yeah.
situation
Jesus.
happened, right? Some crazy situation, a dumb situation, and then they just go, "Wow, there's no exit sign above that door." Even though it was like kind of dumb to have it, like it goes back to not covering your own ass, and eventually the city will fine you and stuff anyway. So you don't want to be dealing with that stuff.
By the way, that's still not fixed. Sorry.
I bought one like 4 months before I left, and told them the wiring had to be switched. Right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that's like a very common thing in a lot of like businesses. There's a lot of stuff gets swept under the carpet until someone's like, "You're going to get fined" or "You're in trouble," and then they want to clean it up. Don't wait to those points, because when the point is bad enough that that happens, like it's too far gone, and you're already in deep shit. All right, let's go do this to wrap up our call today. Let's go injury. This person had a dislocated shoulder. They came back to the gym. They did something stupid. They were mountain biking. I don't know. Let's make something up. They dislocated the shoulder. They tore a rotator cuff. Monday's workout is Amanda. 975 squat, snatch, and ring muscle up. Oof. You're like, what are you going to do, dude? What's a scaling option for squat snatch?
Dumbbell.
Pretty-
Dumbbell snatch with a good arm.
Yeah, pretty easy one here. Dumbbell snatch with a good arm. I can dumbbell squat snatch them if I can get them there and coach it. I would rather that happen.
Clean.
With it,
Squat
if they're
clean.
very, depends how the rack goes. I would say,
Yeah.
like the rack could be an issue, could not be an issue. That's kind of what I would think is clean. If I can dumbbell squat snatch them, I really like that because it's not something we do very often either. That would be my first thing, and even maybe a dumbbell overhead squat could be an interesting one too. But the point of this is partially creativity. So I like that we have dumbbell snatch, dumbbell squat snatch, dumbbell overhead squat, squat clean. Like the more creative we get, the better, and I'll kind of tie that in the end. What about for the ring
I would
muscle
even-
up?
I would also do, sorry to go back, I would even just do PVC pipe squat snatch. Like if they're
Potentially.
like if they're at least if they're able to go over, they just can't maintain weight. I mean, obviously depending where they are, I would just at least
Definitely,
do
it
PVC.
depends on the degree. I would say. Deadlift high pull,
Yeah.
high pull, right? What about the ring muscle up?
On
Single
the floor.
arm ring row. And then maybe like a press from the floor, or I don't know if this is crazy, but
Get crazy.
a single arm bar push up, like from a higher bar,
Well, I don't think it's crazy. I think it could be doable.
as long as they can maintain themselves like straight and not be out like meh.
Yeah, and I mean, the higher you put it, the easier it's going to get. So you could
Right.
dictate the height on that. I don't think it's crazy. That kind of goes back to the really old school ring muscle up, or
Pushing.
like bar muscle up work where like we never knew how to scale anything. So we just told people to do pull ups and dips, right? Like you could certainly use that thinking. What about something else? What if we're in week 2 and we had bar muscle ups, we had ring muscle ups, and we're back on muscle ups, and we're like, oh my God, I've given this person a single arm ring row and a bar push up multiple times. Like, let's get more creative.
Ring row or ring
Dips.
or muscle from the floor. Just like Like have them do strict and controlled all the way up,
But
I
if
think
they,
that,
feet on the floor, or toenails
yeah,
flat.
that may be like when they're starting to feel better and they're kind of recovered, like going off the floor. But if it's like they did it Saturday and it's the Monday WOD or like a week after, that may
Oh,
be way
okay.
too much. You get what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah,
bench
no,
press.
yeah.
That would be like in the back end, like they're coming back to sport, maybe not ready.
so the other day I had one of my members, because I always have her do ring rows when we have pull-ups and stuff like that. So what I did was I put a band on the bar with the PVC
Love
pipe
bands.
between. I
Now we're
sat her
thinking.
down and I had her pull to
Yep.
as low as she could.
That's exactly where I was going with this. Use bands. You can put it on the rig. You can put a PVC pipe. They could do a banded pull up. They could just do one arm like banded pulls. Now we're changing the plane of motion. I can take a band and I can get real creative and put a ring on it. I can do banded ring dips to where, you know, they're standing on the floor, but they're working that other arm. I always like that, even if they're not going to use this arm, but they're able to move. So maybe I'm doing a banded ring dip on one, but I'm still moving the other with nothing. So if they're comfortable, I always like getting movement in there. You can put the band on the rig, sit them on the floor. This would be like a good one, like you were talking, Elise. And I could do a banded transition with the ring, with the muscle up. Get creative like that, because I think it's easy to scale somebody one day. It's easy to scale somebody 2 days. But when you start to see the same movements, like it's going to get boring for them. And if we can, and we can not make it boring, and we can still put our constantly very, methodology into the scaling, like do that, get creative. You said, oh, it might be crazy, like whatever, like if it works, it works. Especially if we're able to preserve some of the movement function in that movement pattern. What about heavy deadlifts?
I said, because if it's the shoulder on the rotator, I don't think they should be doing deadlifts, because I mean,
Yeah,
unless it's very
especially on a
light.
dislocated.
Right.
So like having the shoulders engaged may be a problem. Like I couldn't deadlift when I fucked up my AC joint. That hurt so bad.
So what I suggested was maybe doing single arm, single leg RDLs, like rotating the legs and just
like
using
it.
the same arm, like with a dumbbell.
Yeah, I think you could just do a dumbbell or kettlebell deadlift on the arm. I like that you got creative and made it like an RDL, because that would prompt a little extra challenge. It would prompt some balance. So I totally like that.
I think in the level one, I think it's level one where I heard it, maybe in somewhere else, that they would utilize the hip extension or GHD machine.
Love it. I
in
think that's
lieu
great.
of a deadlift.
That'd be phenomenal. I didn't think of that one, but I think that is, yeah, love it.
I think they were referring to that when you have like a back injury, but you still wanted to target the same muscle groups.
Yeah, so the GHD is a great way to start to work the groups without loading. So yeah, absolutely love the GHD. And then think about deadlift. It's a hinge, right? So if they're comfortable in a rack position, I could maybe have them do good mornings. That's going to totally depend on the rack. I can have them single arm kettlebell swing if I just want to change it up. So maybe it's a Metcon and it's not a heavy day. Maybe I can have them just do single arm kettlebell swing and have a little more intensity to get creative. If none of those hinges work and I can't use them, which in this scenario I think you could, then I would just focus on keeping it low body. So maybe a lunge, a squat if we absolutely had to. And then, with the front squat, I said knee pain. Front squat, you would take the same idea. I can maybe have a pistol variation or a single leg box squat. Oh, I didn't think of that. It could be limiting the depth. It's like kind of depending. Turn it into a hinge, at least keep it low body. Just let yourselves, like the point of this was just really let yourself get creative with things. What are you going to say, Susie?
No, I was just gonna say, I guess it all depends.
Yeah, most of this, I would say it does depend. Like communication and knowing where they're at, when the injury happened, You know, are they in week 6 of it, and then we're gonna start moving, and they have the green light, or are they in day 2 to where like we can't really be on it at all? Like that's gonna really make a difference. And then through all this, it's constant feedback, seeing how they feel, seeing how they're responding. Like ask them 100 times during class. They'll know you care. They might get a little annoyed when you keep asking, but that's going to be an important piece to all this as well. I always like to like jot a couple of these or just have some in mind, like going in class. And then especially if I do have someone that I know can't do something, like we have a girl right now that tore her rotator. She can't use her arm at all. So every day I like write down like Rebecca's going to do X, Y, Z, and I try to change it every single time for her. And then they kind of get good at doing it themselves, and it just starts to make your life easier because they learn from you, you know, in a way.
But I think like that also that because they aren't getting the same coach every day, maybe, then that's, you know, the coaches should communicate also so that they know like what
Communicating
everybody
the
is
scales
doing
and differences.
so
Yeah,
they can
absolutely.
have variety.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And at worst case, what are you going to do? You're going to put some tools in the coach's toolbox.
Right.
You know, you're going to have them learn. And I would say like follow the rules that we use with scaling. Like we're trying to preserve stimulus and we're trying to preserve movement function. Like try to get those two things going. And then when we can't do those and we have to go way outside the box, that's fine. We go way outside the box when we have to. But if we can get those two things down, then we're doing a really good job on the scaling. The girl I had to go to court with, she had a neck and she couldn't literally there was zero upper body on the table, zero. So we were super limited. Like she couldn't put a bar there, she couldn't hold weights. So it was air squats, bike, leg only bike. We did a lot of like sit-ups where she wasn't throwing her hands, and like unfortunately she couldn't run because the impact didn't feel good. Like unfortunately we only had a couple things to work with. So then I got creative on like the style, the pattern, the intervals, chipper, like try to make at least variants in the format of what we're doing in different styles there to give them some excitement. And like
And
she literally was limited to 2 or 3 movements.
yeah, then that's where you can do what's the barbell that they do like squats, they do them with different stuff. They do it with a band, they do it with barbells, they do it with dumbbells. What is it called? Yes, we've said, oh god damn it.
No
None of you know? Okay.
I
CrossFit?
No. We've studied them in like some of our articles.
Conjugate method,
West
West Side
side,
Barbells?
yes, conjugate, yes. We can also implement that, no?
I would say there's a lot of ideas that can come out of that and creativity that can come out of that.
Well, yeah, but like for your girl that you had minimal stuff that you could do, like you could start getting creative in that way too.
Yeah, but I mean, she was literally so minimal that I couldn't use any loads because she couldn't hold a kettlebell here. You know what I
Got it.
mean? So like she
Okay,
was
okay, got it.
so limited that I literally only had I think it was like 4 or 5 movements I could do with her because like she was also in a, you know, a lawsuit. So there was people showing up at the gym that would like be a free trial, but their job was to try to get a picture of her doing something she shouldn't do, and they would have blown the case up. Like that does happen. My uncle used to get followed. He was in a workman's comp case, and he got followed for months. Someone trying to get pictures of him doing shit. Like he would go to Home Depot, they'd follow him in Home Depot. So you know, when it's hundreds of thousands of dollars and sometimes millions, those things, you know, people will do shit like that. Not that we're gonna hopefully ever have to deal with that as a coach in the gym, but it's just good to be aware about. You guys have anything you want to add?
I was gonna have one thing I wanted to add is what I think would be a great tool for coaches to implement for people that are injured or just excessively sore is get them just to start learning the machines better and doing intervals on the machines, because how often do we start understanding like what's a 2-minute row supposed to feel like? I mean, some of us do that extra work, but we don't really get that opportunity too often in the class. So assign them one day ski, next day bike, and
Good
just
idea.
give them different intervals so they can start understanding, all right, this is what a 7,000 meter is going to feel like.
Yeah, find like today's mayhem is a great example. It opens up to 42 cows on the eco bike for guys. Like using that opportunity that they're going to be on these ergs a lot to understand, is 42 cows too much? Do I need to scale that? How long does that take me? Things like that. So I do think that's a really good like educational, just quick 5-minute conversation to layer into them, and it just shows that you're still going over the top to coach them and give them tools when they're limited in what they even can do in your care there too. I like that. That's a great idea. That's something I'll definitely steal. You guys have anything else?
I guess I got to head out.
Call it a day. I'll see you guys on Thursday.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah.